DeMar DeRozan is actually going to be a Sacramento King. He is a Sacramento King. And I can't quite believe it, to be honest, because guys like that, they don't choose to come to Sacramento. They never choose to come to Sacramento. He's the biggest free agent signing in Kings history, or acquisition, because maybe you're not technically signing him because it's a sign and trade, but still, to all those fans, those Clipper fans out there or other fans that just said he's using us for leverage, where are you at now? Him, Vlade Divac are probably the two biggest signings, and DeMar, at this point, even though he's still 34, is a very, very good player, averaging 24 points per game and still leading the league in minutes per game and still extremely clutch. So I think he is the biggest free agent signing, and it comes on the same day that we re-signed Malik Monk, and Malik Monk chose to stay here because he feels like home. If you haven't watched the interview that he did, it's about 8 minutes long. Go watch the Malik Monk interview because it is heartwarming. It's so cool to see a guy feel at home and be willing to take a discount to stay here. So Monte McNair, absolutely cooking. I'm so glad we can do away with all the Monte McNair. He's not making any moves. He should be fired if the Kings go into next season with the same starting lineup. Like, crazy takes when this is the guy, the GM, that's brought us back to relevance. And just the shift in this organization to be able to go out and get a guy like DeMar DeRozan to end his career, most likely end his career in Sacramento, is crazy. This is probably going to be his jersey right here, this number 10, because Sabonis switched to 11. So DeMar will probably be 10, unless Mike Bibby gets his wish and they retire number 10, because he said he wants that. But I think DeMar will probably be number 10. And it was so fun, like, to be in Golden One Center while this was happening. I mean, this unfolded obviously over several days, but for it to happen while I was in Golden One Center, it was the end of the Spurs Hornets game. Very boring game. And it's just, you could see, like, you could hear pockets of fans, like sections. You could tell when they realized what happened. And you could hear it just at different points throughout the stadium. And it was such a cool feel. And then you have Monte McNair and Wes Wilcox coming out of the tunnel, fans applauding them. Apparently some fans were chanting their names. I didn't hear that. And then after both the Chinese national team and the Kings starting lineups were announced, like, everyone already standing, and DeMar comes walking out with Vivek. An amazing moment. Just a quick thing before we keep talking about DeRozan. I did say I was going to talk about the two Kings Summer League games that happened today. I'm actually going to put that off because of this signing. And so I don't want to, like, spam videos out. And so I'll talk about all 4 games tomorrow, with the 2 games tomorrow, the 2 games that just happened, because it was pretty much a no competition against China anyways, but still things to look at. But I just want to enjoy the DeMar DeRozan signing. Like, nothing can bring me down. And, I know some of the criticisms, and it's always like moving the goalposts, where it's like, people are like, yeah, he's using you for leverage. And now that we got him, it's like, oh, he's older, but he's still going very strong. And then it's like, oh, the fit's weird. For me, like, the fit's not really weird at all, because you're replacing Harrison Barnes with DeMar DeRozan. That's actually probably an upgrade defensively. And so, I get it's not going to have us be a top defense, probably. Although it is possible, because the Bulls at one point were very good defensively, and they had DeMar and Vucevic. So it's like, we could still do that. But the Kings were a great defense towards the end of last season when they were starting Keon Ellis and they had Harrison Barnes in there. And so, sure, maybe it doesn't make us title contenders, because that's another thing I've seen. But that's like one of the problems with today's NBA. It's all about title contention. But like I talked about earlier, this is a change in direction of the franchise. This is a team that missed the playoffs my entire life and then finally made it. And then we missed it again last season. Like, this is a team that missed the playoffs last season. We're talking about title contention. Like, let's calm down. Who cares if we're not title contenders? Make the playoffs. Make the team as good as possible. Put yourself in the best position possible. And I think DeMar still has a lot to give over these next 3 years. And we still have assets to make moves. And you put yourself in the best position possible to have things break your way. And the things that could break our way, Keegan Murray could become a star. One of our two-way guys could become a great rotational piece that takes us to the next level defensively. You know, Isaiah Crawford could just be great or something, right? Or we could go up against injured teams in the playoffs, things like that. You have to put yourself in the position to have things break your way. And doing this, I think, does that. It's clearly going to make us better. We were a bad team in the clutch last season, despite having Fox and Monk, but there's just no one outside of that. And so now we have Fox, Monk, and DeRozan, with Sabonis setting screens and distributing to all of them and crashing the glass. And that's another part of this. It takes so much pressure off Domantas Sabonis to score. And that is a great thing. It also takes pressure off Fox to handle the ball as much, which is really good for him, because Harrison Barnes was great when he was handling the ball, attacking the rim a little bit, you know, and doing some creation himself, not a lot, but some. And so when he stopped doing that last season, it hurt our offense. And so we're injecting that right back into it. I don't think I've actually gone over what the sign and trade is. So first of all, the deal is 3 years, $75 million. Sean Cunningham reporting that $49 million of that in the first 2 years is guaranteed. And then there's a partial guarantee on the third year. So we sent out Harrison Barnes, Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, and a 2031 swap. I believe at first it was reported as a 32 swap, but I think they corrected that to a 31 swap. Woj did, I believe. And so Harrison Barnes as contract filler, you're replacing him, right? Chris Duarte, balling for the Dominican Republic, but just didn't live up to expectations. 2 second-round picks for DeRozan, great. We don't need those. And a 31 swap to the Spurs. That's probably a good move for the Spurs, but because they just have Wembanyama, they're probably going to be good in 2031, let's be honest. And we have no idea where the Kings are going to be in 2031, so that's just them thinking by 2031 the Kings will be bad again. So good move on their part, but you have no idea what's going to happen in 2031. The Kings could go from making the finals to being the worst team in the league back to being a playoff team by 2031. And so the Kings managed to retain Kevin Huerter in this, and Kevin Huerter still has value. It still allows the Kings to go out and make trades and with his contract, or they could keep him and he still provides shooting and a really good spark off the bench. Or maybe he starts. That's not going to happen. But he has been starting every time he's been healthy with the Kings, so you never know. But just, I mean, I still can't get over it. It is DeMar DeRozan, just the name value of a probable Hall of Famer, one of the best scorers of all time, coming to Sacramento. And, you know, before it's like our big free agent acquisitions are Zach Randolph at the very end of his career, although he did lead the Kings in scoring that 1 year when Fox was a rookie. So shout out to him. And then he got traded for Harrison Barnes, and then Barnes got traded for DeRozan. I didn't even mean to make that connection. But, you know, it's Trevor Ariza, it's Corey Joseph, it's Dwayne Dedman, you know, and then it's Malik Monk. Like, those are our free agent acquisitions. So this is crazy. I think we got lucky that the Lakers are a dumpster fire when it comes to salaries right now, so they couldn't make a move for him. The Clippers are also not in the best spot salary-wise, so we got lucky that he wasn't, you know, really able to go to LA, go home. So we definitely got lucky in that regard. I mean, this is just a massive win for good vibes. The team is going to be better. And DeMar DeRozan seems like a really good dude by all accounts. Like, everywhere he's gone, people just say the best things about him. And, you know, the Spurs, his former team, are part of getting him to where he wants to go, with the Bulls facilitating it as well. And in a way, Toronto facilitating it by, you know, taking on our salary dump earlier in a way. And it was so crazy to me that, like, a week or two ago, I bought tickets to the California Classic for one day of games. And that 1 day of games happens to have DeMar DeRozan walk in and sign. And that was just so cool to be a part of that and be in the building and people trying to get DeRozan chants going. And it was funny. You know, he comes out with Vivek, he sits down, and then Fox and Risset come out, and they kind of sit away from Vivek and DeMar. And then Vivek gets up, goes over to them, And he's like, no, you're sitting next to DeMar. And he moves people out of the way. He's like rearranging everyone's seats and sits Fox and Risset right next to DeRozan. I thought that was funny. You have Devin Carter in the building. Sad that he couldn't play in Summer League. But Devin Carter's father, Anthony Carter, played with DeRozan in Toronto. That's crazy. And so he was down there sitting next to DeRozan as well. And he tweeted out full circle. So that's fun. Just a few like financial parts of this. It does hard cap the Kings at the first apron, I believe, because it's a sign and trade. But the Kings are pretty well under the first apron. They have the partial MLE to work with. I think it's around 5 million. So they still have some room to go make moves. But even if no moves are made at this point, having a lineup of Fox, a shooting guard, whether it's Malik, maybe in closing time, or Keon Ellis, who looked good today in Summer League. And, with him in the lineup, Keon, the Kings were great defensively. So I still think it's possible when you have Fox, Keon, Keegan, DeMar, and Domas to have a good defense. I think having a great rim protector, a little overrated. And so having Fox, one of those shooting guards, Keegan, DeRozan, Sabonis is a great lineup. Off the bench, you have Devin Carter, Malik Monk, Trey Lyles, and Alex Len. So there's still a missing wing there. Right now, I guess it's Kevin Huerter. But I expect him to be moved. And so that's why it feels like more is coming. Because it's hard to believe that Kevin Huerter will still be on this team. And so it feels like he'll be moved for a wing. Because right now in that athletic wing spot, it's Jalen McDaniels. And so we don't want to go into the season like that. We still need athleticism on the wing, no doubt. And just something to add on here. I don't know. I'll probably just put this in the middle, maybe towards the end. Because after I recorded, there was more news. The Kings are apparently signing. Oh yeah, it just came up. Woj just tweeted a notification. Jordan McLaughlin is coming to Sacramento. He seems like a cool dude. Not the biggest signing by any means, third string point guard, but I do think the Kings probably needed a third string point guard because, they have Fox, Malik, and then you need that third string point guard. I mean, I think Mason Jones is a solid guy on a two-way, but we needed to fill out the roster. And so, I think he's a solid get. He's not the best three-point shooter or anything, but I think he's a solid player to be at the end of the bench. Definitely not a game-changing move, but I think the Kings just had a lot of secondary playmakers in your Keon Ellis's, your Colby Jones, who may get minutes, might not get minutes. So then it's good to kind of have like a good backup in case of emergency type of point guard. That is a true point guard. I'm just looking at McLaughlin's numbers here a little bit. And, throughout his career, like I said, not the best three-point shooter. His first year, he was at 38%, so that's good. And then it kind of went down from there. And then last season, 47% on 1.6 attempts per game in 56 games off the bench. So he's kind of been all over the place. When that three ball is dropping, though, he has been dangerous because he's played against the Kings and he's had that three ball dropping before. And I think he's just kind of a nice, safe player to be your third point guard on the roster. But I think from a starting lineup perspective, we're in a good spot. That doesn't mean that someone couldn't come in and get into the starting lineup. It beat Fox, DeRozan, Keegan, an athletic wing like a Cam Johnson and Sabonis. That could be good because then you have size at the three positions in the middle. But however it works out, I think we're in a good spot right now. I do think getting a guy like Cam Johnson over a guy like Brandon Ingram or Kyle Kuzma is better. I don't even know if Brandon Ingram's really a possibility salary-wise at this point. It doesn't feel like he is, but GMs can always just work some magic. So I guess you never know, but that's not going to happen. And so I think a guy like Cam Johnson, who's more of a low-usage guy, catch and shoot, 3-and-D guy, is probably better than Kyle Kuzma because you'd really have to get a guy like Kuzma to buy into his role. But Kuzma's salary is just so enticing with it decreasing over time. But anyways, this roster is in a great spot. And I think it's just funny how quickly perceptions can change. And what I mean by that is just all the people just at Monte McNair's throat. And I'm just so glad I don't have to defend him anymore, because I was just like defending him so much, preaching patience and all that. And finally, it has paid off. And it's also why having Harrison Barnes on that contract was important. Having tradable contracts like that is very important. And on that note, Harrison Barnes, just, he's the best. Like when I talk about DeMar DeRozan seeming like a good guy everywhere he's been, he's replacing a guy that was the exact same. Harrison Barnes, just a great, great guy. Not once do you hear him ever complain in all his years. You know, he got here, he was traded mid-game. Everyone remembers that. He's traded mid-game, came here, was the first option for a bit, struggled through some really tough times, but signed an extension. And then even after he signed that extension, things were still not good, but he still didn't complain. You know, we had like a good year, and then he signed an extension thinking, oh, things are going well now. It went back to being bad for a little bit. He still didn't complain, because obviously he signed up to be on a team that was on the up, and then we went back down, but he stayed, and he was easily the third best player on the Kings playoff team. Like, he was such a big part and such an underrated part of the Kings getting back to the playoffs. People just love to hate on Harrison Barnes. And, you know, when I say that, I have criticized him plenty, especially last season, for things like his defense or not getting to the rim, things like that. But people taking it way overboard and constantly hating on the guy for just bad reasons, in my opinion. When all he's been is professional, be an Iron Man, show up every single game. I think he played 399 games with the Kings, started them all, was super consistent, especially shooting the ball, and was just a really underrated Kings player throughout his time here. Had great moments, hitting game winners, buzzer beaters over the Cavs, over the Suns. He was great in the play-in game versus the Warriors last year. He set a career high versus the Warriors last year in the regular season. Like, those were very fun moments. And so I am definitely going to miss him. I do think it is better that he went out in the trade, and it probably made more sense salary wise, but it is, I think, better that he went out in the trade for the Kings, because he probably has a lower value than a guy like Kevin Huerter. Maybe not. Honestly, maybe not. But I do think he probably has lower value. If I were to pick between Huerter and Barnes to be on this team right now, I would probably pick Barnes, just in terms of the way he fits as more of a wing. Huerter more of a guard, even though they're actually pretty similar in height, but just in the way they play. But, you know, like I said, I don't think Huerter is going to stick around. But my twin lives another day. But yeah, shout out to Harrison Barnes. That dude was a great, great King, and a very underrated one. You know, I was hoping the Kings would win, and then we would light the beam, and DeRozan would come out and light the beam. Like, that would have been the best. But it is crazy how they like line this up. I mean, and it was luck as well, but just to get him here, and then for him to come in during the Kings game or right before it. Being able to introduce your new star acquisition in front of your home crowd, I mean, that just doesn't happen. I don't think that's ever happened in NBA history. Right when you sign him, you just get to introduce him to the crowd. Like, there's no way that's ever happened in NBA history, unless it's like, you know, way back when and someone got signed during the season. I don't know. We also need DeMar DeRozan, his daughter, to come out to games, and she needs to light the beam. She needs to make all the noise when other teams are shooting free throws, so we can get our crumble cookies. Because if you don't know, there was a play-in game a couple of years ago. I think it was Raptors Bulls or something like that in Toronto, maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. And DeMar DeRozan screaming so loud you could hear it on TV. And the Raptors, I'm pretty sure it was the Raptors, just had the worst free throw shooting night. Just hilarious. And it does feel good to stick it to the people, both in my comments and just on Twitter. You know, there's Clipper fans or some of the Bulls fans. I will say a lot of the Bulls fans are very nice, but some of the Bulls fans that, you know, said we should, you know, give them first round picks or something, or the Clippers fans who just felt so entitled and were sure that there's no way DeRozan's going to pick Sacramento. Like, that feels good. Because usually they'd be right, you know? And that's why it feels good, because they're wrong this time and things have changed. You know, I'm sure throughout the offseason, I'll talk about the fit a lot more, but I think it's a good fit. The worries are the defense, which I kind of talked about, the 3-point shooting. It's like I get the concerns, but like I said, DeMar in for Harrison Barnes. That's probably an upgrade defensively. And then in terms of spacing, you don't need to be a 3-point shooter to space the floor, but also DeMar was really good on corner threes. He can still shoot off the catch. Like, he's an okay 3-point shooter. Like, he can shoot them. And then also, you just don't need to be a 3-point shooter to space the floor. He's going to space the floor in other ways. He's going to attract attention, and he's going to find ways to score. I mean, the Bulls didn't always have the best spacing, and he still found ways to score. It's going to take pressure off other Kings. This Kings team needed shot creation. I think so many people, I always say this, so many people are a season behind, especially when it comes to small market teams. So people still think the Kings are this high flying offense that is horrible defensively. Like, that wasn't the case last season. Last season, the Kings were average defensively and average offensively. And especially towards the end of the season, especially because of the Monk and Herter injuries, the Kings were really bad offensively, and they were really good defensively. It flipped. And so that just tells me the Kings need a bit of everything. And so DeMar DeRozan is just a pure talent upgrade. He's going to be a great fit. The Kings don't have a top 5, top 10 guy in this league, but they have a lot of guys around the top 25, either in the top 25 or just outside of it. In Sabonis, who I think is a top 25 player easily, Fox and DeRozan. And they got DeRozan on a pretty cheap contract, like 3 years, $75 million. That's really not bad for a guy of DeRozan's caliber. You know, obviously, could he just drop off a cliff at the age of 35? He's going into next season at the age of 35. It's possible. I mean, we saw Barnes kind of drop off a cliff going from 31 to 32. But, I mean, that's just a risk you have to take when DeRozan showed no signs of slowing down. Like I said, leading the league in minutes per game and being so incredible in the clutch, still averaging double pretty much what Barnes was averaging. And the Kings have a lot of good contracts. You know, they're going to have Fox and Sabonis on maxes, and then they're going to have DeMar around the 20 to 25 million range. They have Herters around the 17 million range. They have Monks at around the 18 million range. And that's what we've seen work. And sure, when it's worked, it's because you have Jokic on your team, or it's because you're the Celtics and somehow everything just falls your way, I guess. But you have, you know, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. But I still think this is the way contractually with the new CBA. I think the Kings are in a really good spot with their salaries. And we heard from Sam Amick that, sure, Fox was never going to sign the extension because of the money, but there was some truth to him wanting to see the roster upgraded. Well, the front office has done that. And Fox was apparently a big part of getting DeRozan here. We also heard that Malik talked to him as well. But yeah, Fox wanting DeRozan here, that means he's going to be happy. That's only a good thing. And the vibes are just up in Sacramento. I'll say it again. If you have not watched that Malik Monk interview that he did today, 8 minutes of your life, go spend 8 minutes of your life and watch it. Because it's seriously the most heartwarming thing. It brought a tear to my eye. Like, he just couldn't stop smiling. I couldn't stop smiling watching it. The guy has found a home in Sacramento, and it was amazing. And that, I just think, signals what the Kings are about. And, you know, I look at other teams. I look at the Clippers signing Kevin Porter Jr. and Josh Primo. And I look at the Charlotte Hornets signing Miles Bridges. And I'm just like, man, when you talk about the culture of a team like that type of thing, maybe not to that extent, although, you know, there were some guys, maybe not to that extent though. Like, the Kings were such a bad culture for so long. And now that has flipped. And I want to be clear in my excitement, because I've kind of learned something here. I get really excited just about this team being good. I get excited about certain guys that I think could ride the end of the bench but could be good. Like I did it with Sasha Vezenkov, where I feel like I got people's hopes up more than I should have, because I was just excited because Sasha could bring something to the Kings, and it ended up not working out. But I feel like people kind of, from my comments, I was gauging that maybe people thought he was going to be like a starter, and I never wanted to give that across. And so here, I don't want to come across as I think we're title contenders, or I think this immediately just puts us in the top 6 of the West. I mean, I hope it does, but there's still work to be done, and we still have to see how the guys mesh. But I do have high hopes for this team, and I think it could lead to great things. And I look at this poster I have on the wall over here. I was looking at it earlier and just the guys on it. And I was like, okay, Fox, Sabonis, Keegan, Trey Lyles, Kevin Huerter might be gone, Alex Len, Keon Ellis, Malik Monk. Those are the guys left. Harrison Barnes now, Davion Mitchell, Terrence Davis, Chimezie Metu, Kessler Edwards, Neemias Queta, Rashawn Holmes, PJ Dozier, Matthew Dellavedova. Those guys are gone. So it's a pretty big roster turnover at this point. I mean, we kept a lot of our top players, but things are changing, and they are changing for the better. And for the first time in 2 seasons, the Kings will have a starting lineup change with DeMar DeRozan. And I'm not counting 2 years ago when KZ Okpala started like 3 games to start the season. You know what I mean. By the way, what a crazy time. KZ Okpala starting for the Kings. Where is he at? Because he got injured. But he should be back by now, I would think. I wonder where he's at. I should look that up. But let's keep the good vibes rolling. Both Kings teams win tonight. So I will, talk about that tomorrow. Talk about the 2 games tomorrow as well. And I am just ready for DeMar to light DeBeam. Peace.